Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I know that this is a little bit different time, but we are very excited to accommodate a wonderful guest from Hawaii, where the time zone is a little bit earlier than what most of us on the East Coast and continental US are used to. So thank you for being flexible with that, everybody. But before we get started, just a reminder that we do have BioDigiCon coming up. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat to that. And that this is a part of our TCN webinar series. This week, we're going to be talking about PILsBRy. And next week, we do have the Dig In webinar if you would like to also come to that. But this week, we will be focused over in the Hawaiian Islands, looking at Pacific Island land snail. And our presenter is the curator at the Bishop Museum, Norine Yeung. And I will let her go ahead and take it away. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me for this webinar series. Yes, it's a little bit early, it's 8, but I should be kind of awake by now. And so yeah, so I'm part of this PILsBRy Pacific Island Land Snail Biodiversity repository. And so this has several awesome natural history museums that was part of this TCN, and we were just finished this past summer after 4 years and a 5th year no cost extension. So I'm going to go into the talk right now with showcasing some of the work we have done, how it's been influencing and helping out the community, and hoping that we will be continuing to be adding to this portal in the future. All right, so many people realize that we have biodiversity hotspots, and these are regions that have high species counts that are extremely endemic, but also high extinction rates. And sorry. And there are currently 36 regions designated as hotspots, 6 of which completely reside in the Pacific Ocean, and that's Japan, the Philippines, New Zealand, New Caledonia, Polynesia, Micronesia, and the East Melanesia hotspots. So the islands within the Polynesian, Micronesia, and East Melanesia hotspots combined contain more than 6,000 islands. And that's about 1.6% of the land area of the continental US. And it represents about 14 countries, 3 US territories, and the state of Hawaii. And so, just to put in comparison for the endangered listed species, the US mainland has about 1,000 ESA species, right? But the US Pacific Islands take 600, with Hawaii having more than 500 species on this list. And this state, unfortunately, is referred to as the endangered species and extinction capital of the world, a title that we don't want, but unfortunately we do have. So as you can see, we're smack right in the top of the Polynesia hotspot. And so what also a lot of people don't realize is that that most of not just a lot of extinctions happening in Hawaii, but for the group mollusks, this group is actually the highest number of documented extinctions since the 1500s. And that's so,
Nori,
sorry,
we don't see
yes.
the slides at the moment. If you're presenting your slides, we don't see them at the moment. We only see face. I'm so sorry. I just realized that.
Oh, so I actually didn't start sharing, did I? All right. All right. Redo.
Sorry.
No problem.
It was a beautiful, beautiful visual talk, though. I felt like I was seeing everything,
Yeah,
though.
I know, but I don't just want to have my face. That's not a very good visual for like 45 minutes or even 2 minutes. So, all right, can you see that screen now? How's that?
Yes, we are
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right, so we'll do a very quick recap. All right, 36 regions, biodiversity hotspots. So again, high endemicity and high extinction. So here is the Polynesia, Micronesia, Melanesia hotspot. And here we have the number of listed number of species for the US mainland, about 1,000. 600 of it is on the US Pacific Islands, and 500 of these are in Hawaii. Okay. All right, so here's the graph that we're talking about, the group, the the major group with the highest number of documented extinctions since the 1500s. So that's mollusks. And as you can see on this graph, most of the extinctions are happening on terrestrial ecosystems. And on terrestrial ecosystems, most of the extinctions are happening on, unfortunately, Pacific Islands. So people are a lot of times asking me, well, they're not really cared about. So maybe that's why it's that, we don't need to be putting much effort in them. But hopefully at the end of this talk, you'll know the importance of mollusks and why it's really important for us to be conserving this group. So again, why should we care about mollusks? Well, first, they're part of the food chain. They provide ecosystem services like providing habitat for other organisms. Those are like the epibionts. They're important for cleaning up our ecosystem. So a lot of the freshwater mollusks are fantastic filters that clean up the ecosystem. But they're also culturally important. Most people that have gone to the beach usually picks up a shell to bring home as a souvenir. So, shell collections have been huge throughout the centuries, and it's still huge. And we are also using them to create fabric, as well as even slime for our face in spa treatments. And they have been historically used for tools for all types of indigenous groups throughout the world. And they are still being used as tools and lures and other things. All right, so mollusks are the second largest animal phylum. There are about 100,000 to 200,000 species. And this is a fun group to work with is because you can pretty much find it in all the continents and all the oceans. They've adapted to all different various habitats with the marine, aquatic, as well as the terrestrial ecosystems. So and here we have some of the representatives from this mollusk, from the nautilus and that little jumbo orange tiny octopus to the blue sea dragon, the sea bunny, and these are all the different colors and size and shapes. And so this group has really informed the studies of evolution, ecology, and biogeography forever. And so this is a great group to study. Pacific Island land snails have been used to develop theories surrounding the mechanisms of evolution, particularly sympatric and allopatric speciation. And so Gulick, which is a contemporary of Darwin, was trying to assess all of these Hawaiian land snails and these different valleys and the color morphs and the speciations. And some people said that, man, if Darwin actually went to the Hawaiian Islands instead of the Galapagos, the amount of examples that he could have used for his theories of evolution would have been so much more vast, right? And so oceanic islands, actually contain not just Hawaii, but a lot of the Pacific Islands, diverse land snail faunas that have distinctive evolutionary histories and are critical components of island ecosystem function. And so Pacific Island snails, unlike a lot of sometimes the Western perceptions of them, where they're like, ew, yuck, they're slimy and they eat up all of my vegetables. Pacific Island snails in the indigenous cultures, it has more of a positive spin to it. They have been used in song and dance to make lei. So in Hawaii, one of the first hula dances that are taught to the keiki, the kids, is a kahuli song. And kahuli is a Hawaiian name for land snails, or at least one of the names for land snails. And in other Pacific Islands, shells have been used for tools. They have been used for trade. They have been used to make jewelry for a lot of the more prominent members of their groups. And many of these stories are still being passed through generations, over time. So, so what are the different threats to biodiversity? And so we know about over-exploitation, and then we know the impacts of invasive species, climate change, as well as, the continued habitat destruction. So all of these are threats, not just for Hawaiian land snails or Pacific Island land snails, but globally. These are things that are threatening biodiversity. But we usually like to put the sixth horseman, which is the knowledge shortfalls. And so what are these shortfalls? Well, not identifying species, so that's the Linnaean, not understanding their distributions of Wallacean, not knowing how many individuals or populations, not knowing how species are related to each other, not knowing what species need to survive, not having the community understand that we need to fill this gap, which is the Austromian. So we need all of these knowledge gaps to be filled, honestly, if we are to curb the tide of extinction and biodiversity loss throughout the world. And so all of these knowledge shortfalls, if we can fill them, will also help us understand how to stop invasive species spread, the threats of habitat destruction and overexploitation. So all of that needs to be filled if we are truly to kind of curb the tide of extinction. And so here, when we talk about conservation, here's another Venn diagram that my colleague Ken Hayes created. And I thought this was a fantastic visual because when people say, oh, I want to get into conservation, well, what does that mean? Because there's so many aspects that we need to do and fill at the same time to be truly effective in conservation. But I usually argue that, you can do evolution and ecology and all these things, but it does not matter if you do not do systematics first. If you do not know what they are, it does not matter what you are comparing to because you don't know what they are, right? So that's why it's very important that we start to fill this Linnaean shortfall, the species taxonomy. And so for this project, the reason why we created this portal was to help conservation. And this project had several research themes. It was to increase taxonomic understanding to assess biodiversity. It was to allow the exploration of topographic diversity gradients and biogeographical patterns and to assess the effects of anthropogenic change on biodiversity. And very critical to getting all of this knowledge are, as y'all know, natural history collections, right? So these natural history collections are reference material. So if we're going out to do surveys and we want to figure out what they are, we go to the type material. We go into the material that has been collected over time in that location to help us start identifying and figuring out what they are. There's a timeline of their records, right? So every specimen in a collection is like a time capsule of that species in that location over time. And then a lot of the specimens that are housed in these collections have really cool collectors descriptions and information about their life stages and all of these natural historian observations that we need to know now because there are so many areas that we haven't been to for like 50 or 100 years or even more, right? And so these collections are very crucial to ground us to figure out what we're seeing and what we can do to be saving them. And so for this project, this TCN, we started with these 6 really awesome natural history museums. And these collections combined contain 3.6 million specimens of Pacific Island land snails. And many of them were representatives of things that are already gone, and ones that are endangered and ones that are likely to go extinct within the next 10 years unless we do something drastic about them now. So the target goal was to put 3.6 million specimens, their records representing about 3,000 species into this PILsBRy portal. And so the first year we were able to put this up. Chandra Earl has been phenomenal in helping us put all of these information from all of these museums into this Symbiota portal. We were able to tack on also the LA Natural History Museum, as well as putting in records from the London museum, the Natural History Museum there. And so at the end of this project, well, not the end of the project, but our funding cycle, we were able to put and hit target even a little bit more because as we were cleaning records and updating records, we were able to find out that we had a lot more in our collections, as we always do, right, when we start these huge digitization projects. We scanned almost all the field notebooks from all of these museums. And so that's 646 notebooks. We scanned all of our ledgers because it contains a lot of historical natural history observations. And they're also linked to all of these really cool hand-drawn maps, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. So Let me show you this really quick tour of the PILsBRy portal on Symbiota. So there's a bunch of search options, but you can do it by collections, by map. And here are a couple of the parameters that you can input to start searching for the information that you want. And so we can type in Achatinella bulamoides. And here are all the possible name combinations that is connected to bulamoides, whether they are synonymized, current, or was a name in one of our collections. So at the Bishop Museum, we have about 1,000 lots. And you can see on the right side some of the images and information already linked to those specimen records. This is the function that I absolutely love that is helpful for the research that I'm doing in Hawaii. So as much as possible, we are georeferencing all of the records, but sometimes it says Oahu, so we can't really do anything about it except to put a point in the middle of the island. But some of them have been extremely accurate as we are able to connect them to maps that were digitized from our respective collections. So for this particular lot, we have type images that we were able to image and link. And then here's the ledger information. So when the specimen came in, the information that was connected to it. So here's a name, the collectors, where it was collected, and then we find out that it is linked to a map. And we find the map. And here it is. You see the ridges. And instead of a wide location with a huge error of Kai Papao, we actually have a dot on a map. And speaking of maps, here is one of the 100-year-old maps that was scanned and used for this project. And this really awesome video, as well as the last one, was also made by Chandra Earl. But you can see how accurate these maps are, as it's overlaid nearly perfectly over Google Maps. So when we say X marks the spot on the map, it really does. It's that accurate. So one of the cool things that we were able to realize with the support of this portal. And so I'm going to dive into some of the really cool outcomes with the use of this portal. And so a substantial portion of this fauna has not been studied in nearly a century, right? And that makes assessing their evolutionary history, their population dynamics, their conservation status almost impossible, right? As researchers and conservation managers are not able to identify or have little knowledge of the historical and current distributions of these species. But with the amount of information in this portal, we're able to, again, like go to these areas that haven't been searched for centuries, because we didn't even know that they were there. But now with this portal, we're able to visualize all these areas, and a whole bunch of researchers have been going out to these sites, and there have been rediscoveries of species that haven't been seen since they were first described in the 1800s or the early 1900s, and they were written off as extinct, right? And so that were some happy stories that we have species still in these areas that are not extinct and still have a fighting chance to be persisting in these areas. We're able to now put conservation assessments on a lot of these species. So for the red list, a lot of times the mollusks are not honest because they are data deficient. We don't have enough researchers. We do not have enough people working on these groups to show trends, to show counts, to show that when was the last time that they were seen, right? And so even though we may know that this is the last population of this species on Earth, it's hard to put any conservation help for it because the status would be data deficient. And so these are things that, unfortunately, parameters that we can't really quite change, and it's very difficult. But with the help of this portal, we're now able to at least start providing historical records. And then when we pair them with current survey work, that we are able to now show declines or trends of decline throughout these areas, and that we can actually start asking for help for some of these species. In addition to rediscovering species and helping some of these species out, in our collections, our respective collections, we have found manuscript names for new species that people have never gotten a chance to describe them, right? And so we were able to actually pull some of these information out and also start describing them. And as cool as some people think, oh, you're describing new species, there's an actual practical function for this, because you cannot put it on a endangered species list unless it has a name, right? So you can't protect it unless it has a name. And so we have prioritized the describing of new species for taxa that we know are extremely rare, that are highly endangered, so that we can start putting these names on people's radars that they need to pay attention to. So in addition to trying to figure out the native species in the area, it has also helped us to track invasive species and invasions into these areas. And so this is Euglandina rosea. It is a biocontrol that was brought from Florida that was introduced to Hawaii to control another invasive snail. But instead of controlling the giant African snail, it pretty much ate up a lot of native species. And once it was introduced to Hawaii, it was also introduced to Guam and American Samoa and other parts of the Pacific. And so this is a molluscivore. It is a snail killer. And so when we talk about biocontrol of mollusks in Hawaii, we're very gun shy about that. It's because this is a really eating machine that really devastated the native landstill fauna and a lot of the Pacific Islands. But with the ability to even record where they are on these islands, we had a graduate student, Taylor Maruna, that was also part of our TCN project, was able to, map where from recent surveys as well as historical surveys, the presence and absence of the Euglandina species throughout the island chain so that she could present the conservation managers where is the most suitable habitat for right now as well as in the next 50 years, because the state are building these snail enclosures, these predator-proof exclosures, to put in the remnants of a lot of these snail species into these areas. We call it mollusk mansions. Some people call it snail jails, but that's kind of like depressing. So we're just gonna put it as a nicer spin for now until they are free from a lot of these threats. And so building these enclosures and knowing where to build them is very crucial because we don't want to build a enclosed space for all the snails and then still have predators in there. They're like, oh, great, it's like a buffet in this enclosure. So we definitely don't want to do that. And then, so these two talks were just screenshots from just yesterday. So these graduate student from University of Hilo is using the PILsBRy historical records to be organizing their biodiversity surveys, to be also continuing to be developing distribution models to figure out where they should be going for additional surveys that were not, recorded historically in these museums. And on the right, this was one of our senior high school students that used the data from the collections to figure out areas on Oahu where we can either translocate or move this really highly endangered species on Oahu. And she did her own coding with the help with Chandra Earl again. And so here's her code that you guys, can actually use to be characterizing habitat suitability for these species. And then so it's not things that we can do in Hawaii, but this is also an example that, when we went to American Samoa to do some taxonomic training with John Subsinski, who was also part of this this TCN that they asked us to do biodiversity surveys. And so we've been doing a lot of things in Hawaii, but it was nice to know that it actually worked when we went to other islands too. And so I'm also hearing from other researchers that are going to other islands how helpful this PILsBRy portal has been. And so when we went to do surveys, we went to some of these historical sites to figure out, if there's some snails there. And here we have smattering of snails that were found throughout these surveys. We had re-recordings of snails that haven't been recorded for 50 years, some of the last times that these areas were surveyed. And unfortunately, we also have new records of invasive species. So unfortunately, that is inevitable as we have continued trade throughout the world. And so with all of these images and information that we have compiled in this portal, so the Field Museum made these beautiful field guides for us to be passing up in our taxonomic workshops when we're in Hawaii. But we also have a lot of common invasive mollusks that are on a lot of these Pacific islands. And so they helped also to make these beautiful invasive mollusk guides so that we can be sharing it to the wider public. And these are all freely available on the Field Museum field guides. And then we're also going to be linking these onto our Bishop Museum website soon. And so one of the things that when we are writing in our annual reports to the program officer is always a section, what is the impact on society beyond science and technology? And this is the only NSF annual report that I actually had a lot of fun putting these things in. So as we are going through all these cool field notebooks, we get these really wild recipes over time, right? These are recipes from the 1940s and the 1930s. So there's a lot of alcohol recipes, which I would like to try one day. Maybe not the poor man's champagne. So that is basically 1 Burgundy plus 1 Canada Dry ginger ale. That's the poor man's champagne. And it was $2 back in like 1930s that they bought that, right? I'm not sure that is, that cheap anymore. But the pine wine distillation, the dog soup is basically the breakfast of champions. It says a bowl of strong black tea, sugar, powdered cream, and break crackers in it. I'm not sure I'm going to try that, but but these are some of the things that we were able to find in these fun field notebooks. There's also nonfiction historical drama, right? So the two on the left are from field notebooks from the Mangarevan expedition in 1934. William Thornton, layer for 20 to 30 years in Peking, China, and a friend of Teilhard de Chardin of China, is the administrator of Mangareva. He is civil to strangers and a man of letters, but does not wish them to stay around. At present, he is in a great discussion with H. Father Ferrier of Mangareva. Each is trying to chase the other off the island. There wasn't much after that, but still it was kind of like, ooh, historical drama and intrigue. And in this bottom one says, if every one of the 13 people who went on the expedition kept a journal in full and not cryptically as above, there would be 13 angles to the story. Sam's spicy language would have made a fine story if he'd been more verbose. So this, there's a lot of like cool, fun little tidbits of just understanding characters and who went on these expeditions back in the days. But also, some more serious historical context. So December 7th, 1941, start of World War II for the US when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor on Oahu. So these people were actually hiking in the forest, and then they heard the bursting of AA fire in pine fields, and not being able to find trail leading to Kanehoa, how went south of Konia School, then up the pine fields to that semi-plateau of grassline. The funny thing is that that trail is still there, and so you can actually walk that to kind of like feel maybe hearing gunfire and just trying to find that trail and going to that field and then going to that plateau. So yeah, so a lot of cool things. So things that I think does impact how we understand how things were, how things are going, and also see a lot of similarities that we may have seen over the last decades or so. And so trying to fill in this Ostromian shortfall. So none of this work, none of these works could have been done without all of the personnel from all of these museums, all the volunteers, the technicians, the interns, the students, the PIs, the research affiliates, like all of them. This was a lot of work that was put into this portal, and hoping that this portal will continue to persist. So, and this lady, the one with the map, she single-handedly scanned all of the ledgers of Florida Museum, as well as Bishop Museum. She would come in, every weekend and just scan, scan, scan. And she would be the one scanning the field notebooks and sending me these cool tidbits and stories. So, thank you to Lynette for actually doing all of that. So, and with our ability to now have a lot more resources and having these interns and them being able to connect with their friends and family, we were able to get a lot of artists involved with conservation, because they're like, oh, I didn't know, right? And so a lot of artists in our communities are really keen on helping out spread messages to other people that, things that matter, things that, in their backyard, things are going extinct and they didn't even know that, right? And so we were able to get a lot of our local artists to design really cool snail pins and shirts. And this was a mural that was put behind one of the buildings as you're driving along the freeway on Oahu, and to see these beautiful things, just spreading around to be celebrated, right? Because once we are able to celebrate and acknowledge, that goes towards, people appreciating, people helping out in the communities. And hopefully when things come to a vote, they're able to push their representatives to be supporting these things. We were able to get the Bishop Museum to start organizing a snail festival. Have you guys ever heard of a snail festival? Do you guys think that anyone will come to a snail festival? Well, we are hitting we just finished our third annual snail festival, and each snail festival had anywhere from 900 to 1,000 people to just walk in and see like cool snail stuff, buy cool snail things, and support local artists. So if you think that snails can't bring a crowd, well, you should come to Hawaii, because we'll show you differently. We were even able to get our governor last year, 2023, to designate the year of the kahuli. Kahuli, again, is a Hawaiian land snail name, or one of the names. And with the help of the State Wildlife Division, we convinced our governor to designate 2023 as the year of the snail. So this is Andy Huang. He was one of our interns that became a technician in the TCN project, and he gathered all of these information. And he's a Pokemon fanatic, and it's like, okay, I played Pokemon like like years ago, but no, he was like a fanatic, and he goes, all of these snails can be actually like profiles, and we can start having them, or having people start collecting resources to protect the snails, because that's exactly what we do. So the bottom right has the detritus, the fungus, the algae. And then so we're supposed to be saving these native snails in our snail enclosures and feeding them. And whomever collect 3 cards of these resources first, like, wins. These snail profiles are actually grounded in information from PILsBRy. So on the upper left, you see the distribution. Which islands are they on? Um, there's a quick little blurb about some information, whether it's evolutionary, ecology, or conservation base for of the snail. The action, it depends on how rare the snails are. So the more rare they are, the more powerful the action cards are. So we even put in conservation status on this bottom left. And this far right one with the red dot. So not are we just doing native species profiles, but we're also doing invasive ones. And the more invasive they are, they will clean out your hand. And so we've had a lot of contentious games in the collection that we occasionally almost had to call HR, but and yeah, and I'm finding out that the nicest volunteers and technicians are not nice when they start to play this game. But here is the QR code if you want to order a game. So all of the games are towards donation. So none of it is for profit. And so it goes towards land conservation, support of interns, and all of these other good stuff that we want to be continue to helping with the community. So, so there's a little bit more, and it comes with the instructions. We were also able to pair with filmmakers to create, short clips about the endangerment of these species in these islands that really crosses. Like we're using Hawaii a lot of times as representatives because a lot of people see Hawaii as, like a tourist destination or like the extinction capital of the world, but using this as a hook so that we can start spreading awareness across the Pacific Islands to say that these other species on these islands are even worse off. A lot of them hasn't really been surveyed at all for like 75 to 100 years, and we really need to start spotlighting a lot of these areas throughout the Pacific. And here we have another student, Kaliko. So he started off as a high school student, and when he graduated, he says, I really want to do something impactful before I go into college. And so he created this himself. So he drafted a bill to designate state snails in Hawaii. And so we made these voting ballots for intermediate school, elementary school kids to start voting on the different snails for each of the different islands. And this little image is by one of the local artists, Solomon Enos. So when we had to, speak at all of these sessions, so we brought some of the snails so the legislators could see. And the amazing thing was that we had elementary school kids and high school kids actually zoom in and put in statements, being part of this civil government process, right? So, talking about really bringing the snails and science and the things that we do in the collections and really having an impact that we see almost immediately when we started doing all of these community outreach and education. And this year, we were successful. The governor designated 9, not just 1, 9 state snails to represent each of the main Hawaiian islands and the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. And so here are some of the kitties that actually put in testimony. And so we were very excited. And so we are already garnering a lot of information, people wanting more information about their state island snail. And, we're continuing to use PILsBRy to show them this is where they were found and this is what they look like. And then one of the more exciting things that we were able to do was towards the end of this TCN this year, we overlapped it with a NSF program that we just got, the Biodiversity program, where we're giving teachers experience for research, and they were in the collection working with us this summer for a good 7 weeks. And they are also going to be using PILsBRy for their respective biodiversity surveys in their backyard. So Kiana and Aria are from the Big Island, and Kiana is fantastic in creating Instagram reels. I don't have time to be doing that, but she is so involved with her students. But when she was in the collection, we are taking them out to the field and taking out TCN personnel to the field to or doing collection work. So this upper right, his name is Alden, and he's one of the volunteers that have been helping digitize our collections. And Kiana asked, hey, you want to do this dancing for the Kahuli reel and get some support and recognition for these snails? And he was like, sure. He's a retired accountant, and he was like, sure, what do I do? He's never seen the video, he's never seen the song, but he was really into it. You can hear that. And it got like several hundred hits in very, 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 very quickly. And then we will be taking them into the field.
1,000. How many snails are you gonna see today? How many snails are you gonna see today? Hundreds. Yeah. All right. How many snails are you gonna see today?
73 and a half.
How many snails are you gonna see today? 1 million. How many snails are you gonna find today?
I hate being reels, but they forced me to be in it. So I was like, okay, whatever. So yeah. And of course they posted this and it also had several, 100 hits in the, very quickly. And I was like, oh God. But talking about really filling in the Australian and taxonomic shortfalls is, people always says scientific names are so hard to learn. I hate that. And oh my God, these teachers, they created this hip hop real song, and instead of the actual lyrics, they were putting in the scientific name instead. And it was like really catchy, like phylum, niche, heart, money, And so they videotaped the class saying like the names of the 13 families of the Hawaiian land snails and this taxonomic name as they're going into the forest, Philonesia. And I was like, see, we just need to figure out how to put this in the curriculum, and they will be learning all the scientific names soon. So that was really awesome that they were able to do that. So all right. And so I kind of wanted to end, with this, that, none of the work that we have done out, with the research, with the community outreach, building this really amazing portal that I know a lot of people have already started using, can be done without these people. And I just want to do a shout out to all of our collaborators, all of the PIs from all of the museums, because they have been amazing. And we worked through COVID, like we got the TCN and then COVID hit. So as you can see, some of these people are in masks because that's what we had to do for a good year and a half. So yeah. So with that, that's the end of my story.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's super cool. Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions. I learned a lot. I did not know a lot of these things. So this was an absolutely awesome presentation, and thank you so much for putting this together and doing that. We do have someone who's had their hand up for a while, Tim Pierce. I'm gonna allow you to talk, and if you still have a question, please feel free to ask it. Did you have a question, Tim?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. I was going to say that I couldn't see Nori's slides.
Oh, could you see them then?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
good.
So I guess my question would be, this is more on the technical side, but I want to make my collection as compatible with PILsBRy as possible. So I need to add some fields to my database, and that would be island group and island. Are there
Yes.
other fields that I should consider adding as well?
Well, before I get into those technical things, Tim, you need to tell us a joke first.
Oh gosh, I've got a Christmas joke, but it's not a snail joke. Is that okay?
That's perfectly okay.
Why doesn't Santa Claus have to pay for parking? Because it's on the house.
Oh, that's terrible. That's awesome. Sorry.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yes, that was really good. Thank you, Tim. But yeah, so that was one of the hard part, was it? Yeah, having the country, right? Because a lot of times we have it by like political, geographical sections versus geography. So yeah, so when you do the island groups, we were more based with geography than actual based on like geopolitical territories. So that's one of the things that we can provide you with even the island groups that we have already created. We definitely, if you don't have the habitat description, and then, well, actually, you know what? I can definitely send you a template, because then, or you can send me all of your fields, and then we can figure out which ones that are actually missing, so we can add that in.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And then we have another question in the Q&A from Kat Chapman, and it is actually somewhat about Tim. So wonderful segue. Just for fun, Tim Pierce at Carnegie has a significant following online due to his Mollusk Monday snail jokes. Have you considered entering the snail social media fray with competing jokes of your own, or maybe a collaboration? I would love to see a competition of snail jokes.
Oh, I know, but probably all the ones that we have, Tim has probably already said it, right? And that's the thing is like I get my inspiration from Tim. So I'm not sure there's a competition that we can do, but we can probably do a competition on who has the coolest snail specimen in their collection. How's that?
Perfect. And we have another question from Robin Delpina, and I'm going to allow you to talk. So you can ask your question now, Robin. Sorry, did you have a question, Robin? I see that you did unmute. I can't hear you. Can anybody else on the panel hear anything? Okay. So we can't hear you at the moment. If it might be an audio issue, if you want to type out your question, we'd be more than happy to answer it that way too. Oh, you did not have a question. Perfect. I will take you off of the hot seat now. Cool. Well, we do have
Hey,
a
Kat, I was just saying Kat was like wanting to come to the festival. So the fourth annual Kahuli Fest is going to be in the last Saturday of October in 2025. So you should come on out.
I Dig Bio group trip.
Or have it the BioDigicon. I'm just saying.
Like a joint Kahuli festival and BioDigicon. That'd be kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, so you're gonna have the BioDigicon and we can be meeting and stuff like that, and then everybody can come to Kahuli Fest. So we have a local brewery that made a Kahuli brew, basically a snail beer, but there's no snails in there, but it's like a snail themed named beer. So yeah, so we can have a celebration of a local beer at this festival at the end of BioDigicon.
And I actually did have a question. So something that I have been noticing a lot, I am on Korean skincare, like TikTok, Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, but I see it all on Instagram.
Yes.
And like snail mucin is a big thing.
Yes.
I'm not adventurous enough to try it, but what ramifications does like snail mucin have like for snails? I don't know how they get it. I don't know what is done with it. Like, do you know anything about that?
Well, they're saying that in some of these spot advertisements that they keep their snails happy because happy snails make happy slime or something like that. And I don't really know the process, but just naturally as they're roaming around, that they do emit slime because that's how they have to move around. But usually, if we want them to make a lot of slime, you have to agitate them. So I haven't really looked into how they are producing that much slime mucus to purify to be putting in these products. But then I also don't know what else they're putting in these cosmetic things because it's not 100% snail mucus, I don't think. But yeah, but I've also haven't used it, but I've had some people when I've done these workshops and these presentations, and more and more hands are being raised up when I ask, have you used this product? And then they ask me, have you used it? And I'm like, no, it's like if I want to exfoliate, I'll just go to the beach and rub sand on my face. It's like, I'm not going to put snail mucus on my face, but no, thank you. And they're expensive.
Oh,
So
are they?
yeah. Yeah, it's like this little jar is like $30 for it. And I was like, no, I don't need that much skincare on my face. Thank you. I hardly put sunscreen, which is really bad, and all of my friends yell at me, but yeah.
Well, that was my question. We do have a couple more minutes for other questions if other
All right.
people are interested in asking Nori some more questions. Mine was pretty superficial, but I've seen it a lot. Oh, wow. So sorry. I missed the answer to my question as I had an earthquake warning on my phone and moved downstairs. Can you re-answer Kat's question about having a battle? Are you okay, Kat? Oh wait, all good. Okay.
O- Okay, that's good. I was like, I was wondering where you disappeared to. But yeah, so I said that we can't really have a snail joke battle because Tim is just like the master of it, and I get my inspiration from Tim. So if we do have a battle, it would be more like who has the coolest snail in their collection or something like that. Or maybe even have a drawing contest. Wait, no, he's part of it. He can actually draw too. You know what? It'll be very difficult. Oh, how about a cooking contest? The best snail recipe. I can do that. And Kat, I was telling Kit that the next Kahuli Fest for next year is going to be the end of October, so the last Saturday. So if you want to fly out, we'll show you a lot of cool snail stuff. And then there's also a local beer that one of the local breweries make that is snail brewery. No, no snails in it. Just that there's a snail name, and local artist makes this really cool snail beer design, and it's not made of snail, but I'll cook a whole bunch of food for you with mollusks, so that's pretty easy.
Sounds like a pretty sweet deal. You should go ahead and book your ticket now, Kat.
And it's October, so it's not during tourist season, so it's actually the prices is not going to be that bad.
There's no downside. You've not presented any downside to this, so I feel like Kat should get on her app right now and just be like, I'm gonna go. Jesse's coming too. Everybody's
Yeah. Oh, you guys should have a IDIC bio booth.
Lauren, Jesse.
Yeah, no, 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 seriously. So we asked NSF to come out because we had some presentations and outreach, and so we also asked them because this is a huge community. We had like 23 community partners with different artists, all the conservation groups, and so we thought the NSF would have a huge an interested presence too. And you can talk with them, but when I was like roaming around, they had a nice stream of people asking them question at their booth. And we have a lot of students, undergrads, graduate students, and even professors that were roaming around. So I'm just saying, IDIC bio booth.
I will pay for myself. Like you guys don't even have to pay for me to go up to go. So, but no, that sounds awesome. So we are kind of wrapping up at the end of time if we don't have any more questions at the moment. I know I have a lot of questions for Jill logistically now that that idea was thrown out. Um, but yeah, so this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
No problem.
There will be a
Sorry, I wasn't good in email, but it's just like I'm like off in like doing surveys and educational stuff, and so I'm very sorry that I was not the best responder on email.
No, you were fine. You were completely fine. I mean, it's unexcusable that there's not perfect 5G where you're going to do field work, but whatever. No, you're absolutely fine. This was amazing. We really appreciate your energy and your time, and it was so cool to learn about this. Like I said, I learned a lot. Also, I had a question. I like listened to this NPR segment on land snails. Did you do that or was that somebody else? I don't know. It was a couple of years ago.
It was something, yeah, it was probably within our course. So if it wasn't me, then it was probably Ken Hayes who is a PI on this TCN, but also Dave Sisko, we have been collaborators for years because we went to grad school together. So yeah, it's probably one of us in this cohort that is trying to get the word out that snails are cool wherever you are, not just in Hawaii. They're really important for our environment. So let's, take care of them, because if we can't take care of the small stuff, how are we supposed to take care of the big stuff, right?
Yeah. I will
So,
say my favorite fun fact about snails. So I'm from the East Coast, but I moved
uh-huh.
the Mountain West. And I found a snail in a stream while I was hiking, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know snails were here." And I
Yeah.
that it was an Oreo helix, and I was like,
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
"Oh!" And then I learned that that's the Greek word for mountain. There was just so much I was learning that day, but I
Hmm.
love it because it has the word Oreo in it, and I love Oreo.
But don't eat it. It's not
I
chocolate.
won't eat it. I won't eat it. It was just a shell. So I've never seen a
Yeah.
live one. I've only seen their shells. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
those are cool animals. Yeah, and so that's why it's, yeah. So so talk to Tim. Tim can probably give you more information about that species because he does a lot of like really cool work where he is in Carnegie. So yeah. So go connect to your local malacologist.
I might ask, and Tim actually does have one last question. So in my specimen database, is it good protocol to spell Hawaii with the apostrophe?
Oh, it's not an apostrophe, so it's an upside down apostrophe. So this is a Hawaiian diacritical, so it's the kahako and the okina, right? And so this is a hard thing, right? It's because it's like any language, like for the Germans, you have like that squiggly thing. What was that squiggly thing?
I don't
Umlaut.
know.
Is it umlaut?
The umlaut is double
No.
dots.
Yeah,
I
the
know
double dot.
German, and I don't know what it is, so I'm sorry.
I don't know, you feel like it. I usually have to be like, can you translate for this Google? But yeah, so we do want to try to put in diacriticals because we want to not westernize all of these indigenous names, right? But we also just have to be consistent because that's the hard part about databasing. All right. The computer doesn't have the nuances of culture and when we have things. So if you are going to put the diacriticals for all of these non-English names, then you have to be consistent, right? And if you don't know the Hawaiian language or whatever language that you're working in, I'd rather keep it consistent in a westernized manner because then your computer and your databases across the different institutions are compatible. So if you sometimes have the umlaut or sometimes you have the okina, but you don't have it, your Hawaii will have different fields, right? Or different results coming back, even though they're all Hawaii, right? So if you don't know where they go, just spell it without any of the diacriticals. And then maybe one day we can do like a huge find and replace and just change everything.
I'll just say that. I'm like, maybe we can just Command F everything one day.
Right. That would be absolutely awesome. But until we can get it as a more consistent character for these computers that let's just use the westernized way of doing it for now. Soon, one day.
I will help with that. I'm a good Command F-er. Anyways, this was a great day. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And this recording will be available. It may be a little bit later than 24 hours like usual. I do need to get the recording from Jill, but this will be available both on our wiki and on our actual website if you want to go back and watch this. And once again, thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. And don't forget about BioDigicon. And I will copy that link one more time if anybody wants to visit that. Not that link. That's a lot of code. I don't think you guys want to see that. Okay, cool. Well, thank you again, everybody. And thank you so much, Nori. And we really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too.
Hey.
You guys.